In this video, we tackle staining. I just picked up this Tomb of Dracula #1. Actually got it on one of Black Flag Comics Facebook auctions, which they don't do too often, and I was likely to snag this one on there. For those of you that follow my videos, you know that I'm a pretty big Neal Adams fan. Absolutely love his covers, especially his horror covers. And this one is probably one of the most iconic of the era. And of course it represents the blonde damsel in distress, which if you go back to the 70s, apparently that was a thing. And just go take a look at a couple of those covers and you'll see what I'm talking about. But let's take a look at this book and see what I have in mind for ways to improve it. So again, this is Tomb of Dracula #1, published in 1972. Jerry Conway's story, Neal Adams cover art. It is the first appearance of Dracula. And again, you know, with me, I always pick up ones that are kind of getting hot or have a little bit of spec for the future, aside from the fact that I really love this cover. I actually have this book already signed by Neal Adams, and it's one that's going to stay in my collection. And this one, I just saw an opportunity to kind of improve it. I love working on it. So let's see what we can do. So it's currently graded CGC 5.5. I pulled the grader notes and I'll post an image of that in the video as well. But the things that came up are heavy stacking, bend, entire spine of book, light creasing to cover, and light staining to cover. So let's see what's going on. You can immediately tell when you get the book in hand that it does have a stacking bend that runs along the entire portion of the book. So if you don't know or familiar what that is, when you get a whole bunch of comics together and you put them, even in the box, if they're bagged and boarded, if they're facing the same direction over time, they'll kind of warp a little bit in a certain way. It's even worse if you have them stacked one on top of the other. Let's see what I got over here that I can show you. Let's see, grab the first couple books that are over here. All right, so if you keep a bunch of books stacked like this, because of the way the spine and the staples are, you'll see even this cover has it, you'll start to get a slight bend that happens right here as they all kind of settle into each other. And if you leave those for a long time, it'll create kind of a permanent divot there that runs the length of the spine. The same thing that can happen when you have them in a tightly packed box. So what is recommended, and it's a pain if you like going through your comics, is to put them front face to face. So if you stack your books in a box like this with the two fronts of the cover facing with each other, you're basically offsetting them and you're preventing any kind of stacking curl. And you'll see when you line them up in your box like this, they'll look a lot prettier and you won't have any kind of, they won't be sitting off to the side. A lot of times if you have them all in the box like that, you'll probably notice they're turned a little bit like this. If you have them like this, they will be generally straight on throughout the thing. So that's what happened in this book. It was probably kept unbagged, unboarded with some other comics for a while, developed that bend. That is absolutely 100% something that pressing is perfect for resolving. So we're gonna be able to address that particular issue with it. And if it's listed #1, I'm hoping that that's a pretty good reason for this grade, because overall the book looks pretty good, at least from what I can tell already with just kind of peeking through the case. So you'll see again, like first thing I do, I look at the grader notes. I figure if there are things that can be removed. And if you go visit my video that is on the pressable and fixable differences, I go through those pretty extensively and talk about things that can be fixed and things that can't. So here I notice a bunch of spine ticks. We got at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, let's call that 7. That are color breaking ticks on this red color that really shows up. It shows up a lot on black covers too, or anything where the color goes all the way to the spine like that. So those obviously you're not going to be able to get fixed. We are going to be able to lighten any bends that may be associated with them. And you'll see kind of some other micro ticks on there too that are just like usually cited as general spine stress or spine stress lines. All right, so that's what that is. Then around the staple, they call it staple stress, so you'll get some notes that say staple stress. The one thing I do know that wasn't picked up on the grader's note is that staple looks a little dirty right there. And I don't know if that's rust or something else on there. I'm gonna try to clean that up a little bit. you have to be careful. You can't really scrape rust off of a staple. If they pick up on that and they think you've scraped things off the staple, you're technically removing stuff from the book that was there, and that's considered restoration. So you'll get dinged for that as well. You know me, I like to look at the trade dress to see how dirty it is. This one is not really terribly dirty on the front cover. Of course, I'll be able to clean it up a little bit. Maybe I see some marks on here. There's actually a bunch of scuffs on the cover that are making it difficult to see what's actually part of the book and part of the issue with the case. But in general, this one presents really well. The edges and corners are really nice. The spine is generally pretty good from what you normally see. There's not a lot of dirt or grime on it. It's going to be a nice one to clean up. The major issue with this book, which is the reason for making this video, is to address some staining. So if you look at this bottom edge of the book, you'll notice that there's some discoloration or lightening right there. It almost looks like a little bit of yellow. And then this weird line right here. And I'm not sure if that's, sometimes you can have some tanning or from the sun, it'll be able to like lighten the cover like that. Or I'm not sure, like it would be weird to have a liquid stain that looks like that, which is like basically a straight line. So I'm not exactly 100% certain what caused that. We'll have a better idea when we open the book and take a look inside. But if we flip the book over, let's just take a look at the general things. Again, not very dirty overall for what I've seen on this particular back cover, but areas that we're going to be able to clean up, like all of this dirt is going to be able to get up. We can see those spine ticks that were on the front cover. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I can kind of see from here that have some bends associated with them. So we'll be able to lighten those up. We're going to be able to clean all of this, this dirt or grime or whatever it is, color transferred from other books, around the white areas, around the trade dress or just not the trade dress, but the lettering over here. And then generally, there's no tears, there's no rips, there's no edge wear, there's no spine wear. Like, it's a good freaking looking 5.5. So I'm guessing the major things that dinged it are the big bend, which you can again see kind of perforating through on the back cover. So there's that bend that we saw on the front cover. And then again, this guy right here. So there's definitely some light water damage that happened to this book. And we have this staining. You can kind of see the tide line right here with this yellowing all the way across the bottom of the book. And I've been working on my stain removal skills, and that's what we're going to try to show in this video. Hopefully I'll be able to come through and actually lighten this stain and see how it goes. But I think it's worth a shot on this book. Worst case, I'm going to be able to fix this bend and I get back a 5.5 if I end up making the staining worse. So we're going to be talking about the risks in doing this and the process for doing this once we get the book out of the case. And the steps for doing this, I'm gonna crack it. We're gonna take a look at it again. I'm gonna do a general cleaning, which I'll show to kind of get everything that is able to be cleaned up, removed. And then I will move on to the stain removal process, and we'll talk about the steps needed to do that. It's a generally long process, so you kind of do it over several days because it requires multiple applications of water or a mix of peroxide and water to try to remove it and to move this tide line. But we'll get into that once we get this cleaned and get into it. So I hope you're excited about this, and I am. I think we can do a lot better than this. And man, what a great cover. So excited to be working on this one. All right, we got this guy out of there. I cracked him in the garage, and then you saw me cut open the case just now. I pulled out the microchamber paper, and let's get a better look at this book together. So now that we have it out, let's take a look at that stacking curl that's right there. Let me see if I can get the best angle. All right, so I think that might be, there we go. So you can see it pretty much runs the entire length of the book right there. You can see that bend right there. Let's see if I can stand this up very gently, and if we can get a look at what that looks like from the top down. It's not horrible. I've seen a lot worse, but there's definitely a bend there. You can see where it's not straight. It's got a little curvature to it. All right. So again, that we're going to be able to fix. Let's say the worst. Oh, here's an easy way to take a look at it. So you can see that it's not sitting flat when we have it up like this. So that's a good telltale sign of that bend right there. And then get a better look at that staple. I'm not sure what's going on in that. It just looks like it needs to be like cleaned up or something. I'll have to be careful around that one just because of the additional spine stress. All right, let's take a look at the rest of the cover. So, I don't know, there's a couple spots right there that I think I could wipe up or clean up with cleaning. There's something weird, I'm not really sure what that is. Things like that get me nervous that they might be like color touch or something. Okay, and then let's take a look. I actually opened up this before. I love this interior page. My buddy Ryan Comic Guy, who if you follow my videos, you probably follow him on Instagram too. He's been getting into coverless books, and this is why. I mean, that cover's pretty cool, or this interior cover is pretty cool. All right, a couple other things I noticed. So one of the good things is that whatever staining or yellowing caused that was not the same staining that caused the thing on the back, because it does not go through all the way through the book. I do notice that on this corner, there's some kind of bend that's going all the way through the book on this corner over here. But the pages look good. I'm not sure. I mean, this to me looks like a white page. So we can see that. Actually, that might be the same stain. I'm not really sure what happened to this book. But there is a yellow mark that runs along the edge right here. I won't be able to address that with this side. We're going to work on the back cover. And I do notice that there's a little bend in this corner right there. That will get resolved with pressing. All right, let's take a look at the back. Again, it's dirty, but it's not horrible. We've all seen worse, all right? I do notice some like light scuffing or something right here. I don't know what this is. I think it's part of whatever caused this stain. There might be some like food particles or something. And then we have, of course, this stain on the edge. And this little line, which may be a printer's crease. We talked about those recently too, but this is what we're gonna work on doing some removal of. Here, I didn't take this guy out. All right, so let's look. The reason I don't think this is that significant is because the inside of it's not really that affected, and we see that the paper is pretty much intact. It's not like rippled like it had significant water damage, but you can see on the inside cover that it also has, see if I can zoom in a little bit. All right, so you can see on the inside cover that it also has that little tide line there. So we're gonna work on addressing that, but overall, I think we have a good book, a good candidate for a grade increase, and a good book to kind of demo some stain removal on. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of a wipe down. You can see if any of that weird stuff comes off. But I'm really excited to work on this one. We'll get it cleaned up, we'll get it pressed, and we'll get it resubmitted. All right, next up, cleaning. All right, let's get going on this thing. Start on the front cover. Okay, so we've given the book a general cleaning front and back. We did that using the white polymer tipped eraser on all the white areas, the Swiffer pad, just wiping down the book in general, and then with the absorbing eraser. I did use a little bit of the magic eraser around the white edges just to clean up some of these spots. See, there's still a little staining here that didn't come out. But now we're going to transition to focusing on staining. And I know a lot of people are interested in removing either foxing or staining. And I would definitely say this is a very advanced technique that you need to practice a lot of. I've done it, over a dozen times now, and general of mixed results. Most of them have been improvements to the book, but I will say that it's kind of a harrowing experience, and you need to practice, and it could go either way. And there's so much diversity in what causes the stains that it really depends on the book and what you're trying to do and what you are able to gain with improving the stain. So this is one where the staining was specifically notated on the grader notes. And I think it's worth an attempt on lightning, and it's a good opportunity to go through this process with the general community, and you guys can start trying it yourself. So I'm going to talk over the basic steps, and then we'll get into the first application and what we do with the general process. So this particular stain is a water stain. You can kind of tell, you can see where the bottom of the book was dampened, and it has this little tide line. So I think that's pretty important to note. So you're going to want to note where this tide line is. This one goes all the way across the book. You can see where it's kind of curled the edge on the corner. And if you look at the interior pages, you can see that the staining is on the inside of the page as well. And you can see where some of the book was impacted by some water damage. So again, this really varies based on the type of stain and whether it's a water stain or whether it's foxing or just general yellowing to the book. But I would say to start out, focus on maybe some of these water stains or even trying to lighten foxing. And it really depends. I mean, you in some cases, you really won't know what caused the stain. If it was a chemical, a liquid, somebody's juice box or something when they were reading the book in the 60s or 70s. So it really can be pretty varied. And your approach may differ depending on what the stain is made out of. Now, the general process here, the tools that you need will be a nice paintbrush and maybe a couple different sizes. So this is the one that I've been using for these applications. It's a 1/2-inch paintbrush, really nice fiber brush. I bought a set of them, and I think that it helps to have a really tight edge on the brush, because you're going to be using this exclusively, and you really need to have some precision when you're dealing with this. Then you're going to need some distilled water or RO water, reverse osmosis water. You basically don't want any kind of heavy particles or heavy minerals in it, because whatever evaporates is going to leave those minerals behind, and you're going to add or contribute to the stain, and that's not what we want to do here. We want to lift up the stain from the book. The other thing that I have that may be a little unique to my application, something I picked up from some conservation, like paper conservation videos, they use this blotting paper. It's this pretty thick, really heavily absorbent paper that I cut into strips. And the one I found came in a pack like this. It can be a little pricey and a little difficult to find. This is called heavyweight blotting inkjet printer cleaning. All right, so I guess you're supposed to feed this through your inkjet and it's supposed to clean the heads in there. But basically it's just a heavy absorbent paper. And the reason you need that is because you want to dry the page after each application. So let's go through the steps. So when you start, you always want to start with just distilled water or RO water. And then as you progress, you can either work on multiple applications of just water, or you can start adding hydrogen peroxide. So as you increase this, you probably don't want to go more than like a 60-40 ratio of peroxide to water. Like you still want to dilute the peroxide down. Now let's see if I saw my bottle handy. All right, well, I'll pull it out for the next application. But just as you know, when we talk about dilutions, we're not actually talking about the percent of hydrogen peroxide. Most people refer to it as the actual like solution, whatever it is, a 2% solution of hydrogen peroxide mixed with water, like a half and half ratio or something like that. So that's what you can get a lot of impact on when you're using hydrogen peroxide. Obviously, it's a bleaching agent. You're bleaching the page essentially, and you have to be very careful with it. And I wouldn't suggest using 100% hydrogen peroxide. And there's a couple things to note. So when you're doing this, we want to make sure that we're moving this tide line this way. So basically, the idea is we're going to wet our brush. We're going to dab it along this line, and then we're not going to soak the page through, because if we soaked it, we're going to end up moving this tide line this way, and you're just going to end up increasing the staining perimeter of it on the page, and that's the opposite of what we want to do. So we basically want to add the water just very gently. We're going to blot it, and the idea is we're trying to lift that stain up and move the tide line that way, which is easier said than done, but that's the general concept. We dampen this area, we blot it, and over time we start to lighten this stain, and we don't let the tide line get any further this way. We hopefully move it that way. Now, again, I'll always start with regular water first, just to see how the stain reacts, and then I'll move to hydrogen peroxide, and then at the end, I'll focus on just putting some of the hydrogen peroxide solution on the actual tide line itself, which will lighten that specific line and hopefully blend it a little better with the rest of the paper. Now, here's some key things you want to watch out for. Again, you don't want to push the tide line that way, so that happens when you excessively dampen the page and don't dry it. You also don't want to put lots and lots of application of hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide will make the paper more brittle. You'll see it making the paper brittle over time. And if you keep doing it and doing it and doing it, you're going to end up destroying the paper. The other thing is some people ask whether the hydrogen peroxide is detectable by grading companies, and it's not. What happens is when the hydrogen peroxide evaporates, you're basically left with water. So there's not going to be any kind of staining or signature. It's not going to glow under black light. You're basically converting that to carbon dioxide gas or carbon dioxide and then and water. So you're not going to have any residue that's left there. There's really not going to be any trace that you applied hydrogen peroxide to the page. You don't necessarily have to work on that. But if you make it extremely obvious that you bleach the page, there may be some impact there. I mean, it's going to negatively impact your grade. Your idea is you're trying to make this less noticeable and improve the grade. So again, what we're going to do, in this application, I'm just going to start right here. I'm going to apply some water to that area. We're going to blot it up, and then we let it dry. And I think that some people can do, I mean, you're going to do this over multiple days. So you could give it a couple hours. Like with the blotting paper, it helps really dry the paper fast, but you want to dry the paper completely before you put on the second application. And you're going to start to notice that the paper is going to crinkle a little bit. You're going to get some distortions in the page, and you might start to freak out that you're causing additional damage, that it's not looking better. It's actually like looking maybe a little warped or something, like over humidification. I promise you that once you press the book, it's going to really change the way it looks. So we'll get some close-ups of what it looks like after the applications, before it's pressed, and then after it's pressed, because you'll see kind of like the transformation it takes. And you really won't see the full impact of what's happening to the paper until after you press it, and then you'll get an idea. And then you can start over again. And again, if you want to go safe, you can do just water. And if you want to start being more aggressive, you can start adding some hydrogen peroxide to that. But again, always start with water. So what I'm going to do is I am going to stop the video and reset, and then we will get a little zoom in on this area as I do the first application. Okay, we are now zoomed in, and I'm going to start the application. Now, the first thing that you want to do is slide one of these pages underneath there, and I'll usually do that because it aids in drying, and also to make sure that I'm not saturating the pages underneath it. And you can also do that using a piece of cardstock, but I just end up putting it there. So again, we're gonna, you can see, just dampen the brush a little bit and follow this line. And don't freak out if you're not seeing it, get very wet at first, all right? That it will go from not wet to really wet really quickly. So just easy does it, do it kind of slow, and it will, you'll be much better off. So you can see even that, just that little addition of water made it go from a little wet to a lot of wet. And again, you don't really want to go past that tide line. A lot of people talk about brushing in this direction. So you kind of want to brush away from the page. All right, now I'm going to blot it. So I'm just pressing down pretty firmly on the page. Move it over a little bit. All right. Now again, this really isn't magic. It's like anything with cleaning and pressing books. It's just a lot of time usually. So it's going to be a slow process. Again, this one is just water, so I'm not expecting much of a jump. But sometimes when you do this, you'll get a lot of the yellowing lifting onto the blotting pad. Should put a little too much right there. So if you see you put a little too much and it has some water sitting on top of it, use the blotting pad, soak it up. And you'll kind of see, you see here, like that's what it looks like when it absorbs. Maybe I'll come over here and do all right. So again, the idea is that you're kind of lifting that stain off the paper, and depending on what it is, as I said, sometimes you'll get a lot of yellowing that comes off, and that can happen if you're cleaning foxing when you do this. Even with just the water, it'll lift it. It's almost like you're washing the paper, and just that addition of the water will clean a lot of it off. All right. So that's it. That's it for my first application. I'm going to continue to kind of pat it dry. This is a relatively long area, so I'm trying to work on it in sections. I suppose a better way to do it would have been to do half of it and then work on the other half just to show you the difference that it makes over time. But I didn't want to risk at the end having any shade variation between the two sides. And also I'm kind of a little impatient for that. So we're just gonna do it all at once and see how it goes. Now we'll see, you'll even see, it's kind of like bent a little bit there, but don't freak out. So I'm gonna put these blotting papers, leave them there so that it lifts the page up a little bit. It's gonna continue to dry. I'm gonna set all this to the side, and then I may either do one more application of water or move straight to kind of a 50% peroxide mixture. So this is step one of the stain removal process. Okay, so we're ready for our next application. It's been probably about 5 hours or so since I did the initial application with water. And now I'm gonna move on to a 50-50 mix with hydrogen peroxide and distilled water. And it's just run-of-the-mill 3% hydrogen peroxide mixed in equal parts with water. Again, you could go up a little higher, you could go a little lower. I just wouldn't do straight peroxide on this. So let's get to my little work area. And I'll mention also one of the things I was thinking about before that I didn't talk about is that when you're drying this, I mentioned that the peroxide kind of dissolves or will dissipate and be reduced to water over time. Usually that occurs through UV applications. So some people you might hear use UV light to aid in this process, to kind of like aid in the bleaching process of the paper to lighten the stain. Some people will put it in a lighted room. I do this in my dining room, so there's some natural sunlight that comes through the window. I don't think I haven't really played with the technical aspects of that and see how much it impacts it, but I think that you don't need to necessarily put a UV light on it. You can do it in a lighted room and it should be fine. So I'm gonna start my next application, and I'm gonna again follow, now that I have the peroxide in there, I'm gonna follow the tide line. Kind of gonna start up there, and then I'm gonna work my way down. I think what I just did there was kind of my goal. So I usually trace the tide line, and then I work my way down off of that. I kind of make a line, so that's almost my darkest point, so to speak, or most heavily applied point. And then it's usually where the majority of the stain is. Sorry guys, went digging in the closet today, so got a little dust up my nose and a little bit of the sniffles. But I think that about does it for this application. So I kind of went all the way across. This is the most area that I think I need to focus on. It's a little lighter in this area, but this area right here is the one that really has like the most staining, the most like dynamic tide line. So this is an incremental process. So again, that does it for this application. It's application number 2. Again, going to kind of lift that up so the page can dry. And now that I have hydrogen peroxide in here, I'm going to cover this with some plastic so I can use it on my next application, some saran wrap, so that it doesn't dissipate. All right, so let's keep going tomorrow. All right, guys, a quick update. I'm going on application number 4. Right now, I did one water, one with 50-50 peroxide and water, which you guys saw. I did another application off camera, and we're starting to see some incremental progress right now. Now I'm gonna switch a little bit, and I'm gonna focus a couple applications only on the tide line itself. So that really dark mark there. So basically all I'm gonna do is follow that line only. And what I'm trying to do is to lighten, specifically lighten that mark. So I'll end up doing a couple of those. And that way we'll see if we can blend that in with the rest of the page. Like I said, this is a long process. Trying to do this before I take the kids out for trick-or-treating. But if you don't get it today, then it kind of sets you back an entire day or so. So basically what I'm trying to do with this is do some blending. Guys, let's take a look at our progress in our stain removal attempt at the back cover of this Tomb of Dracula #1. And I'm probably about a dozen applications in on the peroxide and water solution. The first application, remember, was just water. The next two were a 50-50 mix of peroxide and water. And then after that, I focused on just applying to the tide line. And you can see that in some of the videos where I explicitly just followed that line and worked on it. Now, at this point, I'll show it to you, and I'll just say that I'm never, ever happy, I think, at this point of it. And what I just kind of, the final step is kind of me just seeing that I'm not making any other incremental progress toward it. And that's when I know it's kind of time to stop and give it a press. But I want to give you a look at what it's going to look like at this time. So you'll see that, let's see, hold on a second. There we go, make sure the focus is on there. So you can almost see where the peroxide solution has kind of affected the paper a little bit. You know, it's kind of giving it some texture to it that it didn't have before. And then you can see where it almost looks like you would if you had a little bit of water damage. You know, like the paper itself is flaring a little bit in those areas where you applied the solution. And the other reason I'm stopping is because I'm noticing that I'm getting a little too white on the side that I've been adding peroxide to. I'm sorry I'm doing this in the evening and we don't have daylight coming through the window. It would have been a little easier to see in that regard, but you'll see after I give it a press and take a couple more pictures of it. But this just gives you an idea of what it's going to look like when you're kind of made some progress through it. So right now I made the decision to give it a press, and after that it kind of changes what it's going to look like. It'll look more like it's finished, and that's what we're going to do at this step now. So I'm going to give it a new backer board, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to apply the centerfold protection, which is a backboard to the centerfold. So we can go find the middle of the book. There we go. Slide it all the way to the staples. While I'm in there, I'll take a look at how those guys are looking. This top one actually looks a little funny. Looks a little different. See how the one's kind of curled in right there. So we'll put that guy in there. And now I'm gonna take it out and we're gonna give this guy some humidity and get him in the press for the respective time. So we'll see you out there. Got the press heating up over there. And over here, I want to give you a quick look at what my humidity chamber looks like. And basically it is a baby humidifier. And let's see, this is, so the sticker on there. So let's see, I don't know how many gallons it is, but it's about 33 long by 18 wide by 13 high. Plenty room for 2 books if you wanted to fit them in there. You don't want to do anything too small, and I'll explain why in a second. But I found this guy on Amazon. It's just a little, you know, essential oil mister infuser slash humidifier, and it does a really good job for this application. There's so many of these that even if I gave you, let's see, this one's called, I don't even know, Your Power. Even if I gave that name, it might still be difficult to find the equivalent. But basically, this is what I use. Some people just use, let me tell you the alternative. The alternative is what people normally do is they make a tub like this. They take boiling water, they put it in the bottom of the tub, and then they leave the book in there for a set amount of time, which can be anywhere from like 10 to 12 hours or something like that. So in that process, it takes a long time. I found it's a little less precise than just using this guy. So, and this also takes like 5 minutes to do, and I get the results that I'm expecting and anticipating. So let me show you what I have here. So this is just cheesecloth that I have on top of one of those fluorescent light kind of grates. All right. So I wanted something that where the air could pass through. That was a little porous, and that's just sitting on top of these PVC. I think these are 4-inch couplings or something like that, and they make the perfect stand for this. So I have these set out here, and then this guy with the cheesecloth goes over here, And then when I want to fire up this guy, I just turn the mister on here. Oh, I have them unplugged. But when I turn them on, I usually keep it pointed over this way and not directly over the comics. And the reason I do that is because I don't want them, I don't want there to be any kind of moisture just directly dripping on the book. You know, I want it to miss the air, not directly drip on it. So I'm going to throw this guy in here, get it plugged in again, and we'll get it humidified. All right, got it plugged in. Got the book in there ready to go. I'm going to turn the mister on. And just for theatrics, I'll turn on the lights in there. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and close this up. Seal the guy right here. And I'm gonna put him in here for 2 minutes, and then I'm gonna flip it over for another 2 minutes. And that'll, we'll take a look at what the book looks after that time. All right, see our finished product. All right, so again, we shouldn't see any of the pages really kind of crinkling up or anything like that. You see it beginning just to curl right there. That's perfect, and I can tell from the heaviness of the page that it's exactly what we're looking for. So I'm going to finish with my cardstock under the front and back cover, and we'll get it in the press. All right, got the stack made, got it on the magazine backer board, and then the SRP paper, my stack, and now I'm going to finish it up with another piece of SRP, followed by the magazine. All right, there's the stack. Close up the press. All right, check the temp. We'll keep it in there for 15 minutes. Okay, we're back. This is after our first press, so it was in the press for the last 24 hours. Again, what I do is 15 minutes of heat, then I leave in the press for about 9 hours overnight or so. In the morning, I flip it and repeat the process so each side gets a press. It's basically in a dry mount press like I have, equivalent to 2 full presses, but it's just been my process, and that's the way I've stuck to. So let's take a look at how this looks. So definitely the book is a lot flatter, and I'm gonna hold up this this side over here to take a look at. So you can see it looks a lot different. All of the water, what looked like kind of the water damage, has gone away, and it looks flat again. And you can see there's some residual areas where there's a little bit, like I think in this bottom corner right here. I'm trying to get the light to hit it right, but let's see. Make sure that my pen is closed. In this bottom corner right here, you can see there's a little area where we might want to work on a little bit. And then there's some areas that I'm going to try to maybe touch up. So I might spend a little more time on those areas, maybe do a couple more applications, and then see how it turns out. But overall, the book looks super flat compared to how bad it was with the stacking curl. And I'm hoping that in addition to that kind of that stain on the cover, a large part of that grade deduction was due to that stacking curl. So we can see the front looks pretty banging awesome. I mean, take a look at that area where the stacking curl was. You can see there's still, because the placement of that staple is a little difficult to get you can't get the cardstock all the way to the end. So it's hard to hit these spine ticks that are here and here. I might work on those with the tack iron. And also I see that you can kind of see where the light is hitting that, where you see it right there. So that is some residual area that is impacted by that stacking curl. So what I'm gonna plan on doing is using the tack iron and flattening this out some more, and then I'm gonna work on that staining on the back cover. So what I'll probably do is I'll do the stain first. Once I get that to a place that I'm happy with, I will go back and do the tack iron on the front cover, and then we're gonna give this guy one more press, and I'm gonna call it a day after that. It should, I don't wanna, you know me, I always say, like, you got to know when to kind of cut your losses, or not cut your losses, but know when to stop in the process. And I don't want to take this too far. I also don't like how this is puffing up like that. I might try to press that down. So I don't want to spend too much time working on this corner, because I think any other water exposure may cause that to kind of lift up some. So we'll keep working on this, and I'm gonna do a couple more applications there, and we'll see how it turns out after that. Here we go. This is our final product. So I just took this guy out of the press. I finally have some good daylight in this room so I can show off all the progress we made. And I'm gonna take a look. We're gonna see the back cover first and kind of look at the stain area and see how that's improved, and then flip it over to the front cover to see how we've been able to address the stacking curl. So let's take a peek at this guy. So remember, I still have the stack there. This is the area where the stain was. I'll lift it up so everybody can see. And in general, the back is looking a lot cleaner. I actually left this one in the press a little longer, so probably 12 hours more than I usually would. And I really wanted to get this, this section over here to lie as flat as possible, and I thought some extra resting time would work. So let's take a look. I'll lift this up, and we can see the area where that stain was. And of course, I'll post some before and after pictures, but I think it's a significant improvement, especially that additional work I did. I think faded out some of the areas here that were still residual, where you could see the tide line, and also right here where it looked like there was still additional tide line and staining. The only thing I would say that I would have liked to do is maybe try to keep this a little darker so that you didn't have these kind of overt bleaching areas. And again, I don't know how realistic that is, just because I would say in the scheme of experience, this is one of the processes I'm less experienced with. So working on an area this large is definitely a feat to try to accomplish. But I would say start small, start with a little water stain in a corner and see how you do. Of course, try on a lot of more inexpensive dollar bin books before you try to get into anything crazy, especially when you're dealing with peroxide. All right, let's look at the front cover over here. All right, so front cover, I think what we were able, yeah, I'm looking in the light. I just want to see how we did on that stacking curl. Again, that was one of the, I mean, the only two things on the grader notes were the stacking curl and the stain. Of course, we couldn't really do peroxide on the front cover. We'd take out that coloration. So you still see a little staining here, but the stacking curl is gone. And all we're kind of left with is a little bit of spine stress, some spine ticks there, but overall it's looking a lot better, a lot cleaner. It lies flat. I'm gonna go ahead and start taking these stacks out. I just want to show you guys too, actually, it's a good point. This is why we don't reuse these pages. So let's see if I can catch it in the light. All right, I might not be able to get it, but you'll be able to, if you do this yourself, you'll see the ridge right there where the page was. Take out the center protection. All right. Take out this piece too. I'm going to take some photos for the after shots on here, but let's see what we've got. So I think this is a beautiful book. Love this copy. Love this issue. I'm looking at it from the side. It's lying flat. I don't see any kind of overt dings or dents on the cover. It looks really pretty. So I'd say a lot of progress from that original stain, and we'll get some before and after pictures, and then we'll send this off to CGC and see how we did in terms of the grade.